The Deming Model. The cycle of model include plan, do, check, act or improve. Today we will study planning. Contents under planning include environmental aspects, compliance obligation, environmental objectives, planning action to achieve the objectives. First, we will discuss environmental aspects of planning. Planning guidance, identification of aspects. An organization's policy, objectives and targets should be based on knowledge about the environmental aspects and significant environmental impacts associated with its activities, products or services. Definitions. According to ISO14001 environmental aspects, elements of an organization's activities, products or services which can interact with the environment. Note: a significant environment aspect is an environment aspect which has or can have a significant environmental impact. Environmental impact. Any change to the environment, whether adverse or beneficial, wholly or partially resulting from an organization's activities, products or services. The relationship between aspects and impacts is one of cause and effect. The term aspects is neutral. Environment aspects could either be positive, such as making a product out of recycled materials, negative, such as discharge of toxic materials to a stream. An EMS should include a procedure to identify the environmental aspects of the organization's activities, products or services. That is, can control. It can have an influence. Control and influence. Organizations may also take into account the degree of practical control they may have over the environment aspects being considered. Organizations should determine what their environmental aspects are, taking into account the inputs and relevant past activities, product or services. The control and influence over the environmental aspects of products vary significantly, depending on the market situation of the organization. A contractor or supplier to the organization may have comparatively little control, while the organization responsible for product design can alter the aspects significantly by changing, for example, a single material. While recognizing that organizations may have limited control over the use and disposal of their products, they should consider, where practical, proper handling and disposal mechanism. This provision is not intended to change or increase an organization's legal obligations. Environmental aspects identification. Where relevant, identify the following significant environment aspects. First, emission to air. Second, releases to water. Third, waste management. Fourth, contamination of land. Fifth, use of raw materials and natural resources. Sixth, other local environmental and community issues. In all cases, one should consider normal and abnormal operations, shutdown, startup and potential emergency conditions when making reviews. The process is intended to identify significant environmental aspects of the organization and is not intended to require a detailed life cycle assessment. Organizations do not have to evaluate each product, component or raw material input. Select categories of activities, products or services to identify aspects most likely to have significant impact. An EMS has to include a procedure to identify environmental aspects of its activity, product or service. 1. Select an activity, product or service. 2. For that activity, identify as many environmental aspects as possible. 3. Identify impacts for each aspect. 4. Evaluate the significance of each impact. Identification of aspects and impacts. Here you can see raw materials, energy, resources are used to perform different activities due to which different environmental pollutants are produced, which are aspects and have impact on environment. Aspects include factors like what is produced, how is it produced, while impact include questions like where does it go, what are the consequences to the environment. Identification effects matrix. We can find aspects by following matrix in which information is filled accordingly. Here is example of aspect and impact identification. The operation is land cleaning, while the environmental aspects and impact can be seen. Here is tabular form of same activity in which aspects and impacts are listed. What issues are significant? Direct release of dangerous substances. In compliance currently or in the future. that may cause the enterprise to be out of compliance with its own internal criteria, result in civil litigation, perceived to be significant by the public or customers, restrict future strategy development of the company, that affect validity of insurance or investors' agreement, that result from poor management of resources, raw materials or waste cause capital or revenue expenditure which could otherwise be avoided. Workflow example to evaluate significance. This flow can be used to find significance of environmental aspect. Similarly, following chart can be used to evaluate impact of aspect and their significance. In next class, under planning we will discuss compliance obligation, environmental objectives,